Hey guys, it's Brad Campbell here, talking to you today about responsive images. This is for CIT230 06. This is a topic that I probably wouldn't have picked, but I guess I had to because there's only 2 or 3 left by the time I got around to choosing one. But anyway, I'm going to do my best to talk to you today and try to teach you something about responsive images. And if you've researched this on the web, there's a lot of information out there about it. Some things have changed with HTML5, and there's been a whole lot of new markup made for responsive images, and things are changing quickly around images to make the web more responsive to them and to make it easier for developers. So I'm going to get into the PowerPoint, and what I've decided to do is use the W3 schools to help us learn this method. The first thing we're going to talk about is using the width property. If the width property is set to 100%, the image will be responsive and scale up and down. You see here the width is set to 100% and the height is set to auto. So we're going to click the Try It button, and we're going to go to the example that's been given here. And as you see here, the width is 100%, the height is set to auto. So if we go up here to the top right, we're going to resize the browser. You see what happens with the image. It expands down and expands out. And very nice. Go back to the PowerPoint. Next thing we're going to talk about is the max width property. If the max width property is set to 100%, the image will scale down but never scale up to be larger than its original size. So you see here the max width is in the red here. It says 100%. The height is set to auto. So we're going to go to the example page here, and you'll see that the image isn't taking up the full area. So this is its original size. And when we rescale it, it's going to go down, but when we expand the browser out, it does not go beyond its original size. And that's an example of how the max width property works. The next thing we want to talk about is background images. Background images can respond to resizing and scaling as well. If the background size property is set to contain, the background image will scale and try to fit the content area. However, the image will keep its aspect ratio. As you can see here, you see the image inside the red box. The content area is the red box, and the image is inside of it, but it's not filling it up. So if we go to the next slide, this is the contain again, and here's the code for it. You see the width is set to 100%, the height is 400 pixels. You have where the background image will go. This is where you'll plug it in to show where your image is. The background repeat is no repeat. Background size is to contain. Remember, you want to keep it inside the viewing area, or whatever the container you've made. And the border is 1 pixel solid red. So we're going to go to our example here. Sorry about that. Trying to get my mouse back, and it's not working with me. There it is. I'm going to go to this. So you see the red box. And remember, this is contain, that you see right here. So when we resize the browser, container changes with the width, but the image does to a certain extent as well. But it does not fill up the whole container. Only when it reaches here will it fill it up. Go back to the PowerPoint. So this is another example that says that the background size property is set to 100%. 100%, the background image will stretch to cover the entire content area. And here's the CSS code for this. The width is set to 100%. The height is 400 pixels. This has to do with the image, the background image. It's where your URL is or where your file is. And the background size is set to 100%, 100%. So we're going to go to try it again. And here you see how the whole image is stretched out to the the whole width of the red box. And when you resize this image, it stays within it, but look what happens when you get smaller. It gets squished. So that's the effect that this property has. Go back to the PowerPoint. Here it talks about if the background property is set to cover. The background image will scale to cover the entire content area. Notice that the cover value keeps the aspect ratio, and some part of the background image may be clipped or maybe look cropped to you. So we'll go to the next slide. And this is the code for cover in the CSS. The width is still 100%. The height is 400 pixels. The background dash size is set to cover. So we're going to go to the example in W3 schools. And here you see the background. It looks really nice. This is the cover. Looks much better. This is how an image is supposed to respond. Go back to the PowerPoint. Different images for different devices. A large image can be perfect on a big computer screen, but useless on a small device. Why load a large image when you have to scale it down anyway? To reduce the load or for any of the other reasons, you can use media queries to display different images on different devices. Here's one example of a large image and one example of a small image that will be displayed on different devices. The first one is for width smaller than 400 pixels. You see the media query there. It says media only screen minimum width 400 pixels. So when you go to our example, here you have the example, and as you see, you have the image over here on the right, and the minimum width down here is set to 400 pixels. So when we resize the browser, it switches images very nicely. It looks really good. And go back to the PowerPoint. The next slide speaks again about different images for different devices. This one is talking about a media query, a minimum device width instead of minimum width. This checks the device width instead of the browser width. Then the image will not change when you resize the browser window. So you see the example markup right here. Again, you have the background image, which is the small flower, and then the second background image is the big flower. It says media only screen minimum device width. So we're gonna so this is the minimum device width. As you see, the image does not change. So you are kind of cropping the image when you resize it. Going back to the PowerPoint and go to the next slide. This is the picture element that I wanted to talk about. It says HTML5 introduced the picture element, which lets you define more than one image. As you see, the browser support Internet Explorer is 13, Chrome is 38, Firefox is version 38, Safari is 9.1, and Opera is 25. In the picture element, you have the source set, which is in the red code, not the burgundy. You have the image, the small flower JPEG. The media is set at a max width 400 pixels. The next source set is the image flowers, which is the large picture with pink flowers. I'm going to go to our example. And when we resize the browser, the images change. Very, very nice. And this is the picture element inside the HTML code. Not the CSS, but the HTML. The last thing I wanted to talk to you about is most of the presentation I got from the W3 schools. I have a link here to the responsive images portion that I just went through. You can go there. You can also go in and adjust and play around with, if we go back, to the link, you can go in here and play with any of the settings and see what actually happens. So as you adjust different things, and you can probably learn some additional things that you can do and things that you can't do. And I invite you to go in and do that. But another article that I wanted to talk to you about is from Cloud4, and it's responsive images. Here you have a picture of a Apple Watch that's sized for a Retina display, and it says 5144 by 1698 pixels. It's a very big picture, but you're going to show it on a BlackBerry. It doesn't make much sense from 320 to 240 pixels. So this is exactly what we're talking to when we're talking about responsive images. How are you going to make that image respond for that Apple Watch? So another thing that I want to talk about is use cases. One of the use cases I want to talk about is resolution switching. Here you have some pictures of Michelle Obama. One is a small, one is a medium, and one is a large. So that could be for a phone, tablet, and a desktop. Another one is art direction. This is a different case. Here you have a picture of President Obama. You can see him very nicely there, the Jeep in the background. But then when you take it to use it on a smaller device, you see how small President Obama is. You can't really tell it's him. So in the art direction, they recommend cropping it. Still the same size image, but once you crop it, you have a very viewable picture of President Obama, and you can tell it's actually him. Again, this is a very good article. I have it referenced for you. The last one I want to go to is the community group, responsive images community group that's set up. Here it talks about the cases that they were talking about. You can go through and read those. Picture element, CRC set attribute, a lot of different things that you can discuss. I hope you enjoyed my presentation today. I know I've learned a lot about responsive images and how I'm going to use them in the weather site project. If you have any questions about the presentation or anything you want to ask me, feel free to respond in the developers forum, and I look forward to talking to you. Thanks.